You don't deserve to be called a mother. That's what my husband, Mark, said to me on Mother's Day. And the worst part, he said it right in front of our daughter, Emily. I can still hear his voice echoing in the kitchen. He didn't shout, he just said it coldly, like it was a fact. Like it was the weather. I stood there with the breakfast I had made for them, pancakes, eggs, and the same coffee he liked for years, going cold on the counter. Emily, my 12-year-old, was holding a small envelope in her hands. "Happy Mother's Day, Mom," she whispered, forcing a smile. Her eyes darted toward her dad as if she was scared to even say it. I took the card. My fingers were trembling. It was a simple pink card with a drawing of a flower on the front. But when I opened it, my breath caught. Inside, in her handwriting, it said, "Mom, I love you. Please don't cry anymore. I heard what Dad said last night. He said you're useless. But I think you're brave." I froze. For a moment, the world just went silent. Even the clock ticking on the wall seemed to stop. I looked at Emily. She was staring at the floor, clutching her sleeves. And that's when it hit me. My daughter had heard everything. All the late-night arguments, the insults, the slammed doors. Everything I thought I was hiding from her. Mark noticed the tears forming in my eyes and smirked. "Don't make this dramatic, Lisa," he said, reaching for his car keys. "You've had 12 years to figure out motherhood. Maybe you're just not cut out for it." He left. Just like that. Keys jingling. Door slamming. Silence again. I sat at the table, staring at the pink card. It felt like a confession from a child forced to grow up too soon. I kept rereading her words. "Please don't cry anymore." And then the memories came flooding back. Flashback. I met Mark when I was 23. I was fresh out of college, working at a small accounting firm in Ohio. He was charming, funny, older, 32, and made me feel like I was the only woman in the world. We got married fast. Too fast. He said he'd take care of everything so I could focus on family. That sounded like love back then. Now I know it was control. Within a few years, I wasn't allowed to make financial decisions. The house was in his name. The car. Even the grocery cards. When Emily was born, I gave up my job. He said it was the right thing for a mother. I believed him. Because that's what good wives do, right? But good wives also get invisible. And that's what I became. That morning, after he left, I looked at myself in the mirror by the hallway. My reflection looked older, sadder, like a stranger. And I whispered to that reflection, "You can't let her grow up thinking this is love." That was the moment everything started to shift. It wasn't loud or cinematic. It was quiet, determined. I grabbed my phone, wiped my tears, and called my old boss, Mr. Harris. I hadn't spoken to him in 10 years. When he picked up, he sounded surprised. "Lisa, is everything all right?" I hesitated, then said the words that tasted both terrifying and freeing. "I'm looking for work again." He paused for a second, then said, "Come by tomorrow. Let's talk." When I hung up, Emily walked into the room. "Mom, are you okay?" she asked softly. I smiled through the tears. "Yeah, baby. I think I'm finally going to be okay." That night, I tucked her in and kissed her forehead. The pink card was still on my bedside table. It wasn't just a card anymore. It was my wake-up call. My reminder that being brave wasn't just about surviving. It was about showing my daughter what strength looks like. And deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't scared. I was angry. And anger, when it comes from love, can move mountains. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. For years, I used to lie in bed waiting for Mark's alarm to ring, listening to him breathe beside me, afraid to even move too much in case he got irritated. But that morning, I didn't wait. I got up first. The mirror by the bathroom door caught my reflection again. Puffy eyes, messy hair, and the faint trace of a bruise on my arm from last week's argument. I didn't look like someone strong, but I was about to become her. I packed Emily's lunch, slipped a note inside that said, "I'm proud of you," and walked her to the bus stop like I always did. But as the bus drove away, I didn't go back home. I took the 7:40 train to downtown. When I stepped off, the city felt alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. Coffee smell, people rushing to work, car horns. It felt like I was rejoining the world. And I was terrified. I met Mr. Harris at the cafe across from the old office. He looked older, grayer, but his eyes were kind. We talked for nearly an hour. He told me the company had expanded. They needed someone experienced, organized, someone who knew the clients and the books. Then he looked at me and said, "Lisa, if you can start next week, the job's yours." I almost cried right there in front of him. "Thank you," I whispered, holding my coffee with both hands to hide how they shook. It wasn't much, $21 an hour to start, but it was mine. A start. When I got home, Mark was already there. He had left work early, something he rarely did. "Where were you?" he asked flatly. I took a deep breath. "I went to see Mr. Harris. I got my old job back." He laughed. Not a kind laugh. A cruel, mocking one. You can't even manage the grocery list right. Who's going to hire you?" "I start Monday," I said, trying to sound calm. His eyes changed. He didn't like that tone. Calm meant I wasn't scared anymore. He stepped closer, his voice low. "You really think you can do this without me? You think anyone will take you seriously when you've been sitting at home for 12 years? That's when I noticed something shift inside me. For the first time, his words didn't break me. They burned, but they didn't break me. I walked past him and went to our bedroom. I opened my drawer and pulled out the small metal tin I kept hidden under old sweaters. Inside were a few crumpled bills, money I'd saved secretly over the years. Birthday cash. Change from groceries. Little by little. It wasn't much, maybe $180 total, but it was my freedom money. I counted it twice, my heart pounding. That night, after Emily went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. I applied for a separate bank account online. My hands shook when I filled in my name, Lisa Patterson. It felt like signing up for life itself. A few days later, I started work. Walking into that office felt surreal. Everything smelled like printer ink and coffee, and people actually smiled at me. Not because they needed something, but because they respected me. The first paycheck came 2 weeks later. It wasn't big, but when I saw the numbers, I couldn't stop staring. For years, I'd watched Mark spend money on golf clubs, trips, new watches. This time, I had money with my name on it. But Mark didn't like the new version of me. He started picking fights over small things. Dinner was too late. The laundry wasn't done. He'd go through my phone when he thought I wasn't looking. One night, he said, "You're getting too confident. Don't forget who pays for this house." I looked up from the sink, drying my hands slowly. "Yeah," I said quietly. But not for long. He didn't answer. Just stared at me like he didn't recognize the woman in front of him anymore. Weeks passed. I opened a P.O. box. I met with a lawyer for a consultation, just to ask some questions. Turns out, I had more rights than he ever told me. When I came home that evening, Emily ran to me. "Mom, Dad was on the phone with someone. He said he's done pretending." My heart stopped. I walked into the bedroom and found him packing. When he saw me, he didn't even look guilty. "I'm moving out," he said, zipping his bag. "There's someone else. And I don't need to explain anything to you." For a second, I couldn't breathe. The world spun. But then, something unexpected happened. I didn't beg. I didn't cry. I just stood there, watching him throw away 12 years like it was nothing. When he left, the house felt too quiet. But it was my quiet. For the first time, I could hear myself think. And my thoughts were clear. He may have walked out, but I was finally walking into my own life. It had been 2 weeks since Mark left. At first, I thought I'd collapse under the weight of it all: bills, groceries, school runs, the silence of a house that used to echo with arguments. But somehow it got easier every day. I'd wake up, make Emily breakfast, go to work, come home, and feel lighter. One morning, as I was leaving for work, I found an envelope under the front door. No return address. Just my name, Lisa, written in a sharp, unfamiliar handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It said, "You'll never be enough for him. He's where he belongs now." There was no signature, but I didn't need one. I knew who it was, her. Mark's someone else. I sat down on the steps, gripping that letter until my fingers hurt. Part of me wanted to rip it apart. The other part wanted to laugh. Because whoever she was, she didn't realize she'd sent that letter to the wrong woman. That evening, Emily was doing her homework at the table when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. "Hello." A woman's voice, hesitant but sharp. "Lisa, this is Rachel. I'm Mark's girlfriend." I didn't say anything. I just listened. "I thought you should know," she continued. "He told me you were unstable. That you cheated. That he was stuck taking care of you." I felt a chill run through me. He had rewritten our story. Again. Made himself the hero and me the villain. "I don't know why you're telling me this," I said quietly. She sighed. "Because he's doing the same to me now." That got my attention. "He's lying to you too?" I asked. "Yes," she said bitterly. He's been seeing another woman. I found messages. And when I confronted him, he said I was just like you. Overreacting. Emotional. I closed my eyes. It was strange, hearing my past coming out of someone else's mouth. Rachel continued, her voice trembling. I'm sorry for the letter. I shouldn't have sent it. He made me believe everything was your fault. I see it now. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. All the anger I had built toward her shifted. She wasn't my enemy. She was just his next victim. Listen, Rachel, I said softly. You don't owe me an apology. You owe yourself a way out. She sniffled. He took money from me. Said it was for a business deal. I just found out it doesn't exist. I felt something click in my mind. Business deal. That meant bank transfers. Records. Proof. Do you have the receipts? I asked. Yes. Keep them safe, I told her. You might need them soon. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what she said. Mark had done the same thing, different faces, same lies. But this time, he'd picked the wrong women. Because I wasn't scared anymore. And she wasn't either. I pulled out my laptop, opened a new document, and started writing. Dates. Transactions. Texts. Every detail I could remember about the years of emotional and financial manipulation. I even printed out a few old bank statements I'd saved. He used to mock me for keeping too much paperwork. Now, that paperwork was going to save me. The next morning, I took a day off work and went to see my lawyer again. Her name was Diane. I handed her everything. She flipped through the papers slowly, her eyes narrowing. Lisa, she said, you have more than enough for a case. Spousal abandonment, financial deception, and emotional abuse. We can file for divorce and claim the house. The house is in his name, I reminded her. She smiled. Doesn't matter. You contributed financially and as a homemaker for over a decade. That counts, especially with evidence like this. For the first time in a long while, I felt something I hadn't felt since before I met Mark, power. When I got home, I found a voicemail from him. Lisa, it's me. Look, about the house. Let's keep this civil. No lawyers. We can talk. His tone wasn't angry. It was nervous. That's when I knew he'd heard. Someone must have told him I'd seen a lawyer. Maybe Rachel. Maybe someone else. I deleted the voicemail and whispered, you should have thought about civil before you called me useless. That weekend, Emily and I painted her room light blue. We laughed, played music, and for a few hours it felt like a new beginning. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over yet. Because when a man like Mark feels his control slipping, he doesn't walk away quietly. He fights back. And I was ready for that fight. 3 weeks later, a letter arrived. Official-looking envelope. Thick paper. The kind that smells like trouble. I tore it open and froze. It was a notice of intent to sell the house. Apparently, Mark had listed it without telling me. The house I'd lived in for 12 years. The one where Emily took her first steps. He was selling it behind my back. I felt dizzy. My hands shook so hard the paper crumpled. I called him immediately. He didn't even hesitate to answer. Mark, I said, trying to sound calm. What is this? You're selling the house. His voice was flat. Yeah, I need the cash. You can move in with your mom or something. It's not like you ever paid for it. I bit my lips so hard it bled. Emily lives here, I said. You're not throwing your own daughter out. He sighed like I was an inconvenience. You'll figure something out, Lisa. You always do. Then he hung up. I sat down on the couch, shaking. For years, I had let him control everything. The money, the house, even my sense of worth. Now, he wanted to erase every trace of me. But this time, I had a weapon he didn't expect. The truth, and a lawyer. I called Diane right away. She listened quietly, then said, he can't legally sell it without your consent. You're still married. We'll file an injunction first thing tomorrow. That night, Emily found me sitting in the dark. Mom, she said softly, did Dad do something bad again? I swallowed hard. He's trying to sell the house, sweetheart. But don't worry, I'm not letting him. She sat beside me, hugging my arm. I don't like him anymore, she whispered. Those words hit harder than anything. A child should never have to say that. The next morning, we met Diane at the courthouse. The place smelled like coffee and dust. We filed the injunction, and she handed me a stack of papers. Keep these safe, she said. He's going to try to intimidate you. Don't let him. That same afternoon, Mark called again. His tone was different, mocking, taunting. So, you're lawyering up now, he sneered. Cute. Do you even know how expensive that is? You think you can beat me with your part-time paycheck. I took a deep breath and said evenly, "It's not about beating you, Mark. It's about ending this." He laughed. "You're not ending anything. You're a scared little housewife pretending to be brave." I smiled faintly. You'd be surprised what scared little housewives can do. Then I hung up. Over the next few days, the tension grew. He started showing up unannounced, standing at the gate, pretending to check on Emily. He'd wave at neighbors, trying to look like the caring father. Then, when no one was watching, his tone would change. "You think this is over?" he hissed one afternoon. "You're making a big mistake." I stood my ground. "No, Mark. I made a big mistake 12 years ago. I'm fixing it now." He left, slamming his car door so hard it echoed down the street. That night, I sat with Diane's papers spread out across the table. Mortgage records, joint account logs, property tax receipts. My name was on everything. Maybe not legally printed, but documented. And then I found something, an old email from our bank. It showed he had withdrawn $18,000 from our savings a month before he left. The description said business investment. Except there was no business. Rachel had told me he used the same line with her. That was it. The proof I needed. The next morning, I forwarded everything to Diane. By noon, she called me back, practically buzzing. "Lisa, this is gold. You just handed me his motive for abandonment and financial fraud. We can file for divorce and demand half of what he took." Half. Half of everything he thought he owned. For a moment, I couldn't even speak. I just sat there, tears welling up, not from sadness, but from something new. Vindication. That night, Emily and I went to Walmart and bought a cheap frame for her Mother's Day card. I hung it by the front door. Every morning when I left for work, I touched it, a reminder of where my strength came from. But just when I thought things were turning in my favor, I got an email that made my stomach drop. Subject line, custody petition Emily Patterson. He wasn't trying to take the house anymore. He was trying to take her. When I first saw the email, I thought it had to be a mistake. Mark had barely spent any time with Emily since he left. He didn't call her for weeks, didn't ask about her school or health. And now he wanted custody? I opened the attached file with shaking hands. There it was, his signature, his lawyer's name, and a statement that made my blood run cold. The mother is emotionally unstable and financially incapable of providing a stable home. It felt like someone punched me in the chest. He was using my past, my lowest moments, to destroy me. I called Diane right away. She sighed when she heard the news. "It's a common tactic. He's trying to scare you. But don't worry, we'll handle it." "How?" I asked, my voice cracking. "He's twisting everything." "Then we untwist it with proof," she said. "You have a job. You have stable housing. And you've been the primary caregiver for years. The court sees that. Still, the thought of walking into a courtroom and having my motherhood questioned made me sick. That night, I sat in Emily's room. She was asleep, hugging her stuffed bunny. I watched her breathe and whispered, "No one's taking you away from me. Not again." The next few days were a blur of paperwork and meetings. Diane helped me gather everything: school records, medical files, photos, even teacher statements showing I was the one who always showed up. When we walked into court that Monday, I felt like I was walking into a storm. Mark was already there, sitting beside a sleek-looking lawyer in a gray suit. He gave me that smug smile I used to mistake for charm. I didn't smile back. When the hearing started, his lawyer spoke first. "She's an unfit mother," he said smoothly. "She has no financial independence, no support system. Mr. Patterson has been the stable provider." I almost laughed. The provider who emptied our savings. Then Diane stood up. Calm, firm, collected. "Your Honor, my client has been the sole caregiver for their daughter for 12 years. She has maintained full-time employment, paid all current bills, and provided a safe home. The father, meanwhile, has moved out, abandoned financial responsibilities, and committed documented financial fraud." The word fraud made Mark's head snap up. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Fraud?" Diane handed him the printed emails and statements I had gathered. He took $18,000 from their joint savings under false pretense. "We also have a witness prepared to testify about his conduct." "Witness?" his lawyer asked. "Yes," Diane said. "His former partner, Rachel Miller." Mark's face turned pale. Later that week, Rachel testified via video call. She described everything: how he lied, manipulated, and stole money under the same business deal excuse. By the end of her testimony, the courtroom was dead silent. Even the judge looked disgusted. Mark's lawyer whispered something to him, probably telling him to settle. But Mark, being Mark, couldn't help himself. He stood up and started shouting. She's lying. They're all lying. Lisa's been poisoning Emily against me. The judge banged the gavel. Mr. Patterson, sit down. He didn't. He pointed at me and yelled, You're nothing without me. You never were. And for the first time, I smiled in that courtroom. Because everyone saw exactly who he was. No more mask, no more manipulation. The judge ordered a recess. As we stepped into the hallway, Diane leaned over and whispered, Congratulations. You just won your case for sole custody. I didn't even know how to react. Tears streamed down my face, and I laughed through them. When we got home that night, Emily ran into my arms. Mom, are we okay? She asked. I kissed her forehead. We're more than okay, baby. We're free. We spent the evening making spaghetti and watching cartoons. Something simple, something ours. For the first time, the house felt peaceful. But deep down, I knew Mark wasn't done. Men like him didn't disappear quietly. They came back when they realized their control was gone. And I was right, because 2 days later, I got a call from Diane. Her voice was calm but serious. Lisa, she said, you might want to sit down. He just filed for bankruptcy, and he's claiming you owe half of his debts. I stared at the phone, speechless. Bankruptcy? Debt. He was still trying to drag me down, this time financially. Wait, I said to Diane. He's claiming I owe half his debts. Yes, she confirmed. He listed you as a co-signer on 2 business loans. My stomach dropped. I never signed anything, I said. I believe you, she replied, but we'll need to prove it. Get your bank statements, any old paperwork, emails. Anything showing your name isn't connected to those accounts. I hung up and sat there for a long time, staring at the same mirror by the hallway that had seen every version of me, bruised, scared, silent. This time, I wasn't any of those things. I was angry. That evening, I dug through boxes in the closet, old tax forms, receipts, bills. Emily sat beside me, handing me folders like my little assistant. Mom, are we in trouble? She asked quietly. I smiled faintly. Not if I can help it. After hours of searching, I found something that made my heart race. An old email chain between Mark and his business partner. He had forged my digital signature. Same font, same placement, but the email address wasn't even mine. I printed everything and highlighted every inconsistency. The next morning, I went straight to Diane's office. She flipped through the papers, nodding slowly. This is perfect, she said. Forgery. Fraud. He's digging his own grave. A week later, we had to appear in bankruptcy court. Different settings, same tension. Mark looked thinner, exhausted, but the arrogance was still there. He gave me that smug smirk when I walked in, as if daring me to speak. His lawyer started with a speech about shared responsibility and marital debt. Then Diane stood. Your Honor, she said firmly, we have reason to believe Mr. Patterson falsified his wife's signature on 2 separate financial documents. We've submitted proof of forgery and email correspondence. The judge adjusted his glasses and looked at Mark. Mr. Patterson, did you obtain your wife's consent for these loans? Mark stammered. She knew about them. Diane stepped forward. She didn't. And the email used to verify her signature belongs to a domain registered under his name. The room went silent. The judge turned to Mark. Sir, are you aware falsifying financial documents is a federal offense? Mark's lawyer whispered something urgently, but Mark just sat there, his jaw tight. For once, he had nothing to say. After the hearing, Diane smiled at me. He's finished, Lisa. The court will remove your name from any liability and flag his case for review. You're free. That word again, free. I didn't cry this time. I just exhaled like I'd been holding my breath for years. When I got home, Emily ran to me. Did we win? She asked, eyes wide. We did, I said, smiling. And this time it's for good. She jumped into my arms, laughing. We ordered pizza that night and danced in the living room, just the 2 of us. For the first time, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like someone who had survived a war and come out stronger. But a few days later, something unexpected happened. I got a text from an unknown number. It was Rachel again. Lisa, I thought you should know. Mark's been telling people you ruined his life. He's talking about suing you for defamation. I stared at the screen and laughed. Because deep down, I knew what this was. It wasn't about money or even revenge anymore. It was about control. He couldn't stand that I'd taken mine back. So I decided to end it, once and for all. That night, I sat on the porch with my laptop. I opened a blank document and started writing, not for court, not for him, for me. Every memory, every insult, every bruise. I called it The Truth I Couldn't Say. At first, it was just a journal. But as I wrote, I realized this was bigger than me. There were women out there living the same story, silent, scared, trapped. And I wanted them to know it was possible to break free. A few weeks later, I posted my story anonymously on a women's forum. I didn't expect much. But within days, the post exploded. Thousands of comments. Messages from women saying, "This is my story too. Thank you for giving me hope." One comment stood out. "You didn't just survive, you reclaimed your power. You're teaching your daughter what strength looks like." That night, Emily walked in while I was reading. "What are you smiling at, Mom?" she asked. I closed the laptop and hugged her. "Just something beautiful," I said softly. But as peaceful as things seemed, I knew there was still one final thing I had to do. Face him. Not in court. Not through lawyers. Face him as the woman he no longer controlled. So when his message came, "We need to talk," I replied. "Fine. Tomorrow. Coffee shop near the courthouse. 9 a.m. It was time to end the story on my terms. When I walked into the coffee shop that morning, my hands weren't shaking anymore. For years, they used to tremble before every confrontation, every harsh word, every insult. Not today. I spotted him instantly, same leather jacket, same self-assured smirk, but the eyes gave him away. They weren't confident anymore. They were desperate. He waved at me like we were old friends. "Lisa," he said, standing up. "You look different." I sat down across from him, folding my hands neatly on the table. "Different's good," I said. "It means I survived." He chuckled awkwardly. Always the dramatic one. Then he leaned in. "Look, we don't have to keep fighting. The lawyers, the money, it's all gotten messy. Why don't we just end it quietly? You keep the house, I'll walk away." His tone was smooth, practiced. It was the same voice he used years ago when he convinced me to quit my job. The same tone he used when he said he'd take care of me. I looked him straight in the eye. "You mean you want me to sign the settlement so you don't get investigated for fraud?" He froze for a second, then smirked again. "You wouldn't do that to me. You're not that kind of person." I leaned back. "You're right. I wasn't." Then I slid a folder across the table. Inside were copies of everything, emails, screenshots, bank transfers, even the forged documents. His hand hovered over the papers like they were burning. "What is this?" he asked quietly. "Proof," I said. "Proof that you built your life on lies. Proof that I don't owe you anything." He sat back, jaw tight. "You're bluffing." I shook my head. "The court doesn't think so. Diane filed it yesterday. The review starts next week." He went pale. For the first time, I saw something I'd never seen in him before, fear. He ran his hands through his hair. "You're ruining me," he muttered. "You're taking everything." I stared at him for a long moment. "Everything? Mark, you took everything years ago. My confidence. My peace. My youth. I'm just taking myself back." He didn't have a comeback for that. He just sat there, silent, staring at the table. After a few minutes, he said quietly, "I never thought you'd actually fight back." I smiled. "That's the problem. You never thought I could." We sat in silence for a while, the clinking of cups and hum of conversations filling the space between us. Then I stood up, picked up my bag, and said, "This is the last time we'll ever meet. I don't hate you, Mark, but I'll never let you hurt us again." He looked up, almost pleading. "Us?" I nodded. "Emily and me. We're done being part of your story." As I turned to leave, he called out, "You'll regret this someday." I stopped at the door, looked back, and said, "No, Mark. You'll regret losing a woman who finally learned her worth." Then I walked out. No tears. No shaking. Just a strange calm that came from finally being done. That evening, I told Emily that everything was settled. She hugged me tight and said, "You're my hero, Mom." I smiled, holding her close. "No, sweetheart. I just finally became the woman I should have been all along." We spent the weekend redecorating the house, painting the walls, rearranging furniture, taking down old photos. It wasn't about erasing the past. It was about reclaiming it. A few months later, the fraud case closed. Mark was fined heavily and barred from holding business licenses for 5 years. I didn't celebrate his downfall. I celebrated my peace. Diane called me the day the verdict came in. "It's official," she said. "You're free and clear. No debts, full custody, full ownership of the house." When I hung up, I walked to the mirror one last time. The same mirror that once showed me a broken woman now reflected someone entirely different, strong, calm, alive. I whispered, "You did it." And somewhere deep down, I knew I hadn't just won for myself. I'd won for every woman who's ever been told she's not enough. Later that night, I took Emily out for ice cream. We laughed, talked about her school play, her future, her dreams. As we walked home under the streetlights, she said, "Mom, when I grow up, I want to be brave like you." I smiled through tears. "You already are, baby." We unlocked the front door, our door, and stepped inside. The framed Mother's Day card still hung by the wall, the words inside softly glowing under the lamplight. "Please don't cry anymore. I think you're brave." And I finally whispered back, "You were right, Emily. I am." After everything ended in court, I thought peace would come easy. But peace isn't quiet, it's work. Bills still had to be paid. Groceries still needed buying. And being strong didn't mean I wasn't exhausted. Some mornings, I'd sit at the kitchen table with my coffee and think, is this really my life now? No husband. No backup plan. Just me. But then I'd look at Emily eating her cereal, humming a song, and I'd remind myself, yes, this is exactly my life now. And that realization, though scary, felt good. Work picked up fast. Mr. Harris promoted me within months. He said, "Lisa, I don't know what happened in your life, but whatever it was, it made you unstoppable." I smiled. It made me awake. Soon, I was managing 3 accounts, staying late to learn the new systems, and rebuilding my confidence one spreadsheet at a time. Every dollar I earned went into a savings account under my own name. That account was my symbol of freedom. No secrets. No signatures that weren't mine. I even started helping other women at work, those quiet, polite coworkers who hesitated to speak up. We'd have lunch together, and they'd open up about controlling partners, bad divorces, silent suffering. I'd tell them, you don't have to wait for permission to leave pain. Sometimes strength doesn't roar, it just whispers, not anymore. They'd always go quiet after that. The kind of silence where someone realizes they still have a choice. A few months later, I did something I hadn't done in over a decade. I applied for a credit card. It was approved. It sounds small, but when you've lived under control, even tiny victories feel like revolutions. Emily and I started small traditions. Friday pizza nights, Saturday thrift shopping, movie marathons with popcorn. The house that once felt like a prison now echoed with laughter. Every night before bed, I'd check the locks on the door, then look at the framed Mother's Day card. I didn't cry anymore. I smiled. Then one day, out of nowhere, I got a letter from a local community center. They were hosting a panel for women rebuilding after abuse. The organizer had found my anonymous story online and invited me to speak. My first instinct was no way. Public speaking terrified me. But something deep inside whispered, it's time. So I said yes. That decision would change everything again, because that stage became where I finally took my voice back. The day of the event, I almost backed out. I stood in front of the mirror, my palms sweating, rehearsing what to say. My voice shook just thinking about it. "Hi, I'm Lisa, and I used to think silence was strength." No, too soft. "Hi, I'm Lisa, and I survived." Still not right. Then I looked at my reflection, older, calmer, wiser, and said out loud, "Hi, I'm Lisa. I believed I was worthless. But I was wrong." That line stayed. The community center was packed, women of all ages, some with kids, some alone, some holding hands for courage. I sat in the front row waiting for my turn, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear the speaker before me. Then the host called my name. I walked up to the microphone, took a deep breath, and told my story. Not the edited version. Not the polite one. The real one. I told them about the years of manipulation. About the insults whispered in kitchens, the bruises hidden under sleeves, the fear of money I didn't control. I told them about Emily's card. About how a child's love can wake up a dying soul. And then, I told them the truth I had learned the hard way. You don't need anyone's permission to start over. You just need to believe that your pain isn't the end of your story. The room went silent. A few women wiped tears. One older lady in the back whispered, "Amen." I smiled and added, I used to think revenge was power. But it's not. Justice is power. Peace is power. Knowing who you are, that's power. When I stepped down from that stage, women lined up to hug me. Some were crying, some were shaking, some just whispered thank you. One woman said, "You said the words I've been too scared to say for 20 years. Another said, My daughter needs to hear this. That day, I realized something beautiful. My story wasn't just mine anymore. It was every woman's story who'd been told to stay quiet. The local newspaper wrote about the event. They didn't use my full name, just Lisa P., survivor and advocate. That alone felt surreal. I got messages from women's shelters asking if I could volunteer. So I started going once a week, helping women write resumes, open bank accounts, plan exits from abusive homes. One night, while helping a woman named Carla file for a protection order, she looked up at me and said, "You talk like someone who's been through hell." I smiled. That's how I know the way out. Life wasn't perfect. Some nights I'd still wake up sweating, remembering his voice or that final courtroom scene. But I'd walk to the mirror, take a deep breath, and remind myself, "You're not there anymore." Emily would sometimes ask, "Do you miss him?" And I'd say, "No, honey. I miss who I thought he was. But not him." She understood that better than I expected. 6 months later, something incredible happened. A local nonprofit invited me to be part of a documentary on women rebuilding after control. At first, I laughed. Me? A documentary? But when they explained it was to inspire others, I said yes again. During filming, they asked, "If you could talk to the woman you were 5 years ago, what would you say?" I looked into the camera and whispered, "You think this is the end of your life, but it's the beginning. You're going to build something beautiful from everything they tried to break." And for once, I believed every word. That night, Emily and I watched the first cut together. She leaned against me and said, "Mom, I didn't know you were that strong." I kissed her hair and whispered, "Neither did I." But I was. And now, so was she. It had been almost 2 years since that Mother's Day. The one that broke me. The one that also started everything. Life looked completely different now. I had a stable job, savings in my account, and peace in my home. But more than that, I had a voice. And that voice had started reaching places I never imagined. One morning, I got an email from a high school counselor named Mrs. Green. She wrote, "Lisa, I read about your story in the local paper. Would you come speak at our Mother-Daughter Empowerment Day? Your journey could help a lot of girls who've seen the wrong kind of love at home." I hesitated for a moment. Me, speaking to teenagers? But then I thought about Emily. If one girl could see her mother stand tall, maybe another could see hope in herself. So I said yes. The auditorium was full, hundreds of mothers and daughters sitting together. Emily sat in the front row, grinning like she owned the place. I took the stage and looked out at all those faces. Some smiled, some looked nervous, and a few looked exactly how I used to feel, tired but trying to hide it. I started simply. 2 years ago, someone told me I didn't deserve to be called a mother. The room went still. And for a while I believed him. Because that's what abuse does. It makes you believe you're the problem. That your love isn't enough. That you have to shrink to keep the peace. I paused, meeting their eyes one by one. But that day my daughter gave me a card. She wrote, "Please don't cry anymore. I think you're brave." And that card saved me. A few people wiped tears. Emily's eyes were shining. So, if anyone here has ever been told you're not enough, I want you to remember this. Being a mother isn't about being perfect. It's about showing your child what courage looks like. Even if that courage comes late. The audience stood and applauded. I saw a few women hugging their daughters, whispering things I knew came straight from the heart. Afterward, a teenage girl came up to me and said, "My mom's going through what you went through. Can I show her your speech?" I smiled and said, "Show her. And tell her she's not alone." That night, after the event, Emily and I went home. She handed me something as soon as we walked in, another pink card. This time, she'd drawn a sun rising behind a woman holding a little girl's hand. Inside it said, "Happy Mother's Day, Mom. You didn't just survive. You taught me how to live brave." I pressed the card to my chest, tears rolling down my face, but this time they were tears of pride. I hugged her tight and whispered, "You saved me, Emily. You really did." She grinned. "No, Mom. You saved you. I just reminded you how strong you were." Later, when she went to bed, I walked through the quiet house. The same walls that once held fear now felt full of peace. The mirror in the hallway caught my reflection again, but now I saw light in my eyes. I whispered to that reflection, "You deserve to be called a mother. You always did." Then I turned off the light. A week later, the local women's shelter named a small program after me, the Lisa Project, offering job placement and financial training for survivors starting over. Standing at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, I thought back to the woman I used to be, scared, broke, voiceless. Now I was leading others out of the same darkness. It wasn't revenge that made me powerful. It was rebuilding, forgiving myself, and proving that being broken doesn't mean being finished. Because I wasn't just a survivor. I was a mother, a provider, a woman reborn. "You don't deserve to be called a mother," he once said. Now, when people looked at me holding Emily's hand, smiling and strong, I knew. That sentence had finally found its ending. No, Mark. I don't just deserve it. I earned it.